Hello, stargazers. My name's Natta Jain. I'm an astrologer for Esoteric Technologies, and today I'm very excited to share with you our new introduction video on annual and monthly profections using Astro Gold macOS. This is one of the most effective and user-friendly methods to chart key themes in your life for the next 12 months ahead. Profections are an ancient Time Lord technique used in Hellenistic astrology to plot key themes in relation to the houses and planets for your year ahead and how they're going to play out for you in relation to events and overall energy. Every birthday, you step into a new house for your birthday year ahead, and that sets the greater tone for that 12 months. So think of it as annually starting from your birthday, it's like a new chapter of your life awaits. For example, when you turn 30, you step into a 7th year profection, and your 7th house rules relationships. So that year is going to probably have a bit more of a predominant theme in regard to relationships of all different sorts and forms, partnerships, contracts, all these sorts of things. Astro Gold macOS makes working with profections really easy because it does all the manual counting for you. And it also shows you not just the annual profection, but the monthly profection as well. And that helps you to really tailor down and get much more of a nuanced quality to your year month by month. So you can really hone in on particular areas to focus on. These techniques really help to illustrate the year ahead for you, not just the house that's being perfected that year, but also it tells the story of the ruling planet, and this is really what gives your year color and form. Whilst it's really the traditional planets that we focus on in profections, you can still use the outer planets, so Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, if they are falling in a house that is being perfected that year, or if they are making significant aspects to the Lord of the Year planet, then it's still worth taking them into consideration. By combining these elements, profections bring a clear and very structured way of working through the chart and that 12 months ahead. And this is going to really help you when you're planning big events or when you are considering making bigger decisions in life, or just generally devoting a year to a particular theme. So, for example, this might be your year to focus on your health and well-being. During today's session, we're going to be looking at the chart of the American actor Robert Downey Jr. We're going to be analysing 3 particular points in his life, major career events. So number 1 was his first ever movie. Number 2 is the release of Iron Man. And number 3 is his next project. So without further ado, let's crack on. Here is a list of guidelines for interpreting profections. It's not exhaustive, but it does give you a lot of the main points. So first of all is that you want to identify the profection house. Each year a house is activated, and that's going to shape the theme for the next 12 months ahead. You want to determine whatever planet rules the zodiac sign on the cusp of that profection house for the year. Make sure you're using traditional rulerships, and that will become something known as the Time Lord of the year. You also want to examine the condition of that ruling planet. Is it in a good positive state, or is it a bit challenged? So you can look at house placement, the aspects, the dignity. Is it a day chart? Is it a night chart? Retrogrades, etc. There's quite a number of things that you can have a look at there. You also want to assess the planet in the profection house. If maybe there are no planets, maybe there's one, maybe there's lots. But you want to have a look at them if there are planets in that natal house, and because they're going to really play out in that year's events, basically. Are there any benefic or malefic planets involved? I.e., is Jupiter and Venus involved? They're the benefics. Or what about Mars and Saturn? They're the malefics. Are they involved as well? You can consider transits and progressions. I think that's always a really good thing to do. And so analyze how transiting and progressed planets can interact with the profection house, because often they can trigger events, and look at what the ruling planet is up to. The same techniques can also be used looking at a monthly profection as well as the annual, and that can help to give it a more nuanced perspective. The other thing I'd also say is that it's worth considering things in hindsight. So what I mean by that is have a look at prior years where you've experienced the same profection. So like if you're experiencing a year 3 profection, have a look at what was going on 12 years ago when you also experienced that year 3 profection, because even though it's not going to be the same circumstances directly, there will be a similar underlining value that's the same. And so these are important things to also think about too. You either want to open a chart you've already created, or create a new chart, and you just want to make sure that it's in whole signs. So if you're creating a new chart, you just fill in the details here. This is the new chart button on the top of the bar, and just make sure that it's in whole signs before you calculate it. If you are wanting to change a chart that maybe you have in a different house system that you've already made, go up to preferences, click calculations, and make sure this is whole signs here, and then you can just apply it. So what you want to do next is then you want to come to sheets, which is on the top bar. Click on that, go down the list here, and you want to find Profections. There we are. So on the top bar here is all Robert's chart details, the basic details, and you can see it's whole signs. This is annual and monthly profections, and we're calculating everything from the ascendant here, which is what people mainly do. So that's the most common variation. And I'll just go through this little box here. So first of all is that we've got it in 12-year increments, and the age in 12-year increments as well. And so you can click on each of those and it will highlight which 12-year increment you're choosing. So, and then here, so this, for example, is the 12-year increment that starts from the 4th of April 1977, when Robert Downey Jr. was 12 years old, and it will go up until he's 23. So there we go. It shows you down here the ages and the years by increment, and this goes up to his 23. When he reaches 24, you can just click on the next one in the 12-year age section, and it will take you to his 24th birthday year. So if we're calculating from the ascendant, it's always going to start with Leo, because that's his rising sign and the lord of the chart here. It's always going to start that as the first year when we're calculating from the ascendant, when we're having a look at these 12-year increments. It always starts from the 4th of April because the profection year always starts from your birthday as well. So if we take, for example, when he was, let's see, when he was 28. So when he was 28, it was 1993, and he was having a 5th year profection year. So, and that was ruled by Sagittarius. And the lord of his chart for that year is going to be Jupiter, as that's the ruler of Sagittarius. If you just want to double check, you can go back to the chart and you'll see here that Sagittarius is the ruler of the 5th house cusp. So he's having a 5th year profection. So let's just go back to the sheets again. So that's the annual year bulk by bulk. And then we've got the monthly as well. So if we just consider his 28th year still for a moment, then this is further breaking that year down into monthly increments. We've got the age here, and we've also got month by month the zodiac sign it's ruled by, so the different house, and also the different lord here. So say, for example, June is going to be a particularly important month for him in regard to relationships, because his descendant in his 7th house is ruled by Aquarius. So this will be more of a relationshipal focus this month for him. Okay, let's have a look at the next thing. Traditionally, perfections are calculated from the ascendant, but you can also perfect from other key points in the chart, each offering a different perspective of the year and how it's going to unfold. So if you go to the cogwheel here and press on that, you'll see that I can change this. So we've got the ascendant here. So the ascendant is fantastic and is the most common method that's used, but it's fantastic for giving a greater overall snapshot of the year's main focus, and the greater life direction and your sense of identity within each year. We've then got the midheaven. So you see, if I click on the midheaven, you'll see that will all change. There we go. And so this is now, it will say midheaven up here, and this is being perfected from that point. When you're working with the midheaven, this is going to be useful for tracking career shifts, promotions, your public reputation, this sort of a thing, year by year. You can click it starting from the sun, and so we can just change that again here. But if you're looking at the sun, then this is an area where, for example, it will highlight your core identity, your vitality, your sense of life purpose, your personal growth, all these sorts of things, self-actualization, creative expression, your active leadership. If we start the perfections from the moon, then this is going to be more about your emotional life, your home life, your inner world, your inner growth, intuition, your family, a sense of security, your inner well-being, this sort of a thing. So there's lots of different ones that we can perfect from. We've also got the lot of fortune here. And so where are you going to find some good luck, basically? How is that sense of divine intervention working in your life there? And then also what you can do is you've got where you can perfect from the different zodiac signs as well here, depending on what subject matter you want to be covering too. So say, for example, if you wanted to be having a look at the finances, then if we go back to Robert's chart here, you'll see his 2nd house, the cusp is Virgo. So you can go into the sheets here, and then maybe if you want to have a look at what his finances are doing throughout the year, you can start that perfection year from Virgo and have a look and consider it month by month or year by year with that theme. The movie Pound, which was the debut movie for Robert Downey Jr. That was his first acting movie. So it was a surrealist comedy, Pound, and it was directed by his father, Robert Downey Sr. That was actually released on August the 12th, 1970. So let's go over to Sheets again on the top bar. And here we are on Perfections. Because it's in the first 12 years of his life, it will be in this first segment here. So he was only 5 years old when that came out. So here is 1970 in this line here. And the cusp, so it was a 6th house perfection year. The cusp is Capricorn. The ruler or the lord of that year is Saturn. And the month, it was actually August the 12th. So this month was on his MC, and it's Taurus as the cusp ruler and Venus as the lord or the ruler of that month. So let's go over to the chart now and have a look. So here is that 6th year profection that we're talking about. And it's interesting it's the 6th year because 6th year governs work, but also our daily routine. And, that was his first job and his first experience of, having a daily routine to stick to for a little while. Hilarious that 6th house also rules pets as well. And the first role he had in Pound was actually playing a dog in the movie. How funny. You can't make that up, really, can you? So we've got Capricorn on the 6th house cusp, and that Capricorn is a very strong parental aspect. It can be often connecting us with authority figures, and it was his father who cast him in the role. Now, whilst there are no planets in that 6th house, we're still always going to look at the planet that rules the zodiac sign on the cusp. And in this case, it's Saturn. And Saturn is over here in the 8th house in Pisces. So that 8th house, it's very much about shared resources. And Robert's father not only shared the opportunity of acting with him, but shared his knowledge, shared his passion. Pisces is this energy that encompasses multiple different facets of something. And it's deeply emotional, all right? And Robert probably found that quite intuitive to step into. That is also your house of legacy as well. And there is a sense of legacy. There's a sense of continued trade between his father being in the movies and him being in the movies as well. It's an area that is very much about transformation and power, and that first acting role totally transformed his life and gave him a lot of power. And also that Saturn is conjunct Chiron there. So it suggests that there's probably a level of complexity around authority and power structures, probably from quite an early age, and possibly complexity with the relationship with him and his dad. Without doubt, Robert definitely experienced some challenges within his career. But very much like the phoenix, which is a little bit of an 8th house symbol almost, he did rise very fantastically from the ashes again. So it's also making, that Saturn is also making hard aspects. It's making the opposition to the stellium in his 2nd house in Virgo. And, that Virgo is that importance of that work ethic that he has. And here we see it in his 2nd house of resources. It's a resource he can always tap into, and finances. We've got that Mars there, and Mars is taking action. It's being passionate about things. We've got Uranus, which is a very unconventional start to making money in our life. And it was a surreal offbeat comedy as well. But Uranus is also can propel us into greatness too. So very interesting placement to see. And then we've got Pluto there, which is very much about that power and control. And his career was definitely controlled by his father earlier on. But that Virgo is also fascinating to see there on that 2nd house, because that Virgo is a very mutable sign. And Robert, over the course of his career and his finances and his resources, has definitely rolled with the punches. And, there is an aspect there where he has been very mercurial and transformed himself. And that Mercury is what rules Virgo. So there are also some squares that Saturn is making, and they're to his nodes. So we've got that one up to the 11th house Gemini North Node. And this is the amazing open doorway, the collective impact of his career. He's a master of words and has that very strong gift of being able to change and shift, very mercurial again, into any character. That's the art of an actor, isn't it? And he was very much destined for that public role with that North Node there. And then we've got the South Node in his fifth house. And, that South Node is very much a sense of that roots and legacy as well. And it's creative roots for him. And there's probably also karmic themes in relation to that too as well. And a great influence of his father on that art that he has. And so this square, having that square, even though it highlights the challenges that he has had over his career, that initial perfection first set off, it also shows that it was never going to be a one-off. It was a huge pivotal turning point for him. I mean, how amazing to start off your career playing a dog and then to eventually become Iron Man in a huge movie franchise like Marvel. What an absolute epic journey. Let's now move on to when the movie was released, the month. So that month was a 10th house perfection month. And, the 10th house is about professional visibility and status. And even at the age of 5, Robert was stepping into the public eye for the first time. That 10th house is Taurus, we've got, which is ruled by Venus. And that planet is the planet of art and film and entertainment and also attraction. Robert was able to attract a lot towards him in his life from that moment. It's a very auspicious sign for a career debut. So Venus is one of the beneficents, so that's always going to be a fantastic sign. And then in the actual 10th house itself, we've got the moon and Jupiter both in Taurus. So Jupiter, known as the greater benefic, is in his 10th. And because Robert was born in the daytime, he's got a day chart, it means that between Jupiter and Venus, Jupiter is the most powerfully positive planet in his chart. So fantastic it was playing out in that month when he had his first movie role, because that brings expansion and opportunity. And it also suggests that first role, while small, was going to end up being a lucky stepping stone in a much longer career. And then we've got the moon there that's exalted in Taurus, which is an incredibly positive placement. And that's showing that emotional stability and support and nurturing he would have had in the environment and the presence around him, and from also other people who are in greater authority there. Perfect for a child who's entering the acting world to feel encouragement and awe as well, and excitement, and feeling very protected too. Now Venus is in that 9th house, and that 9th house can also be things like publishing, and technically you do publish a movie. But Venus is also conjunct his sun, and that sun is this wonderful energy in a person's life, this drive, this sense of standing in our power, in our sense of our identity, going on our personal quest, right? And particularly when it's in Aries, because Aries is taking up the quest, it's pioneering forward, jumping into something new and exciting. And so that Venus is also sextiling the North Node, and also making a trine down to the South Node, so which we've already mentioned. But lovely to see that is all very nicely connecting up to the month and the year, both for Robert when Pound was released. Let's now look at the transits at the time when Pound was released. So we're going to go to where it says number 2 up here to create a bi-wheel. So this is Pound, the movie release. So that's now on the outside wheel. Robert's is on the inside wheel. And so first of all is that if we think about that, we were talking about Saturn earlier as the Lord of the year. At the time, we've actually got the North Node that is conjunct Saturn. It's going past there. And so that Saturn, as we've already talked about, is that sense there of stepping in to this very powerful experience that is often led by an authority figure, this great sense of legacy. That eighth house is very ritualistic. It is this rite of passage almost. And the North Node is something that feels incredibly fated. It's like destiny. It's this greater sort of influence that's going on there that is almost beyond either of them in some ways. So his career was set in motion by also external forces. His father, the industry connections, all of these are all very eighth house things as well. And the North Node is this opening, this opportunity, encouraging us, inviting us to step through that open threshold. It was a threshold moment for him, very significant. This event planted the seeds for a much longer term transformation for him. Those North Nodes, when anything happens and the North Nodes are involved, it's always exceedingly impactful. And we may not see the full ramifications at the time, but they do play out over the course of many years, particularly when Saturn is involved and Saturn rules time. There's always a sort of long-term plan there, if you like. Mercury was also conjunct the stellium that Robert has in Virgo in his second house. And that Mercury, is that planet of communication and learning. And it's fascinating that it is transiting over that stellium. And that is such a heavy feature of what is being activated this year for him. And that Mercury is suggesting that even as a 5-year-old, he's really observing a lot of key lessons about work and values, and also with that Uranus, the unpredictable nature of fame as well, and the power with Pluto, and gaining a taste, gaining for a passion for it, which is that Mars. Saturn, which is, as we talked about, the Lord of his year. In the actual transits itself, though, Saturn is on top of the Jupiter and Pluto that we were discussing are the important month that he's having, the 10th month profection. And that's actually where Saturn is as well. It's so interesting, isn't it? And so that aligns perfectly with the monthly profection that he was having. And it's this real career legitimacy. Even though he was a child, he was cementing his identity from an actor of a young age, but earlier on. That's quite an adult thing to do at quite a young age. And it's this sort of greater recognition of that Jupiter that can have also greater legacy to it as well, because that Saturn, as I mentioned, is time. And whatever that Jupiter touches is going to help to expand that. And for him, that was very much visibility in the film industry. Again, that Saturn is touching that moon as well. And that's that. Whilst that's probably a little bit of pressure from his dad, it is also ultimately a very supportive experience rather than damaging. So these transits really help to reinforce the long-term potential of his career. Saturn is this very enduring quality, and it takes things very seriously. That Jupiter is the expanded influence of things, and the moon is that emotional stability. All absolutely marvellous for his movie debut. On the 14th of April 2008, this was the day that Iron Man was released in Sydney. Robert Downey Jr. stepped into his most iconic role, launching the Marvel Cinematic Universe and solidifying himself even more, if that was humanly possible, as an absolute Hollywood legend. So let's go over to Sheets and let's see who we are on Profections. And you can see I've highlighted here. This is 2008 when it was released. He was 43 years old, and it was a 8th house profection year. Interesting, it's because we've just been talking about that with Pound, how that was activated as well. And it's also an 8th house profection month, so double whammy. So let's go and have a look at that now. So here we are. So it's an 8th profection year, and interesting to see that the ruler of Pisces being the cusp is Jupiter, and it brings us back again to the 10th. And these are the same two houses that were activated when Pound was released. Isn't that fascinating? So here we've got in 2008, as I mentioned, Robert was 43. So that's going to place him in the 8th house profected year. And it is one of the most profound life-altering profections, the 8th house, anyone can experience. It's about major transformations, rites of passage, shared resources, legacy, and also rebirth. And he had the biggest rebirth of his career after years of personal and professional struggles. Now, I'm a very big fan of Robert's, so I'm aware that he doesn't really like talking about his personal issues from the past. So very purposely, I've chosen not to focus on that in this recording. I just wanted to really focus on the positive things. This story almost of redemption and this sort of completely imagining your life and recreating your life and becoming an absolute inspiration and powerhouse from that. So so as I was saying, so the 8th house is very much this huge, big rebirth year for him. As we discussed already, Jupiter is the main benefic, and it's being highlighted here very significantly because it is the Lord of the year. How fantastic. And because, again, it's in that 10th house, it's all about his career, all about his public status. And that means that this year, when it's activated, is being activated on a massive scale. And that's exactly what happened. So now it wasn't just a new role for Robert, it was his return, it was his redemption arc. So the moment saw him really step in to a whole new version of himself. The world was no longer seeing him as a troubled actor. The world was seeing him as this icon and this great inspiration. Now, at the time, as we talked about previously, the Saturn and the Chiron in the 8th house, but at the time when it's being activated in this year for him, it's very responsible, and it's that mastery and that long-term success. And that Chiron has proved incredibly healing, and all the wisdom that he's gained through life experience. And it's highlighting the deeply personal and cathartic nature of this transformation. He wasn't just playing a superhero, he was literally embodying one in his own life. So this movie also put him in a whole new financial bracket. He was doing well anyway, but now he was suddenly the highest paid Marvel star. The Pisces energy also really represents that more compassionate side that he has, a more mystical side. And in actual fact, Robert's very into astrology, actually, himself. And after stepping into the Iron Man role, he became really well known for his generosity, kindness, and philanthropy, which is all very Piscean. So this was more than just career success. It was a complete rebirth of his public image, transforming how he was seen by the world. Now let's have a look. I thought it would be interesting to have a look at the secondary progressions this time. So again, I'm just going to pop in a second chart, and I've already got the progression chart here. So again, Robert's chart's on the inside, this slightly blue chart here. This is the secondary progressions set for Sydney on the day of the release of Iron Man. So first of all is that when that was released, the progressed sun was making an exact conjunction with his natal Jupiter, which is the Lord of the year. How amazing. That's like gold dust. So that is really representing that sun, his identity, his purpose, his life direction. It's a major peak in his personal life, those two, Sun and Jupiter, connecting like that. Fantastic for personal expansion. That's only going to happen once in a lifetime, and that's definitely not going to happen once for everyone. So, you know, that sun, that progressed sun, is only in one zodiac sign for 30 years at a time. So it takes quite a long time to go around. So most people would never even experience the sun conjunct that Jupiter like that in the progressed chart. So it's absolutely exceptional, particularly in that 10th house of career and his reputation and his talents. And this has been his biggest opportunity, and it collides with him creating history. At the same time, the progressed moon was in Sagittarius, and obviously that Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, so it brings us back to the Great Beneficent for Robert in his chart, and also the Lord of the Year again. Now, where that moon is, it is conjunct the South Node, and I mean, it was definitely leaving his comfort zone, I'm sure, doing this new role, but it was very destined. He had to sort of step into that. He had to step away from his old life and step into this new one, and that's incredibly profound. You know, one door opens, another door closes, vice versa, the other way around too. And so we've also got the moon trining his Mercury there. And that Mercury is that wonderful magician energy, that oratory skills that we have, the act of being able to charm as well. And so it's a marvelous energy. And again, that's in his 9th house, which, as I mentioned earlier, can also be publishing. So it's very powerful. And for Robert, this was a major career rebirth for him, but also a deeply emotional and spiritual one. You know, that moon is very emotional, and where that Mercury is, it's a very philosophical take on things too. And so he wasn't just back, he was even better than ever before, which is amazing. So this 8th house transformation in 2008 made him into an immortal in pop culture history. What an absolute superstar. Lastly, let's have a little sneaky peek into what Robert has up his sleeve next. So recently he announced that he's taking on another Marvel role. This time he's going to be the infamous supervillain Doctor Doom. It's a shocking twist in his career, and it marks a fascinating departure from Iron Man and opens a new chapter in his public identity and legacy. Since this role represents not just his career, but his future in the public eye, let's actually shift the point that we're calculating his perfection from. So let's go up to Sheets. And then we're going to go to the cog here, and rather than, we've been looking at the ascendant so far, so rather than that, we're now going to go to the midheaven, and this is just so I can show you how you can change what point you want to start from to look at it from a different lens or perspective. So let's click on the midheaven there, and you'll see it's automatically turned to Taurus. So every 12-month increment is going to start with Taurus, because that is what is on his midheaven. So if we go to 2026, this is when he's talking about releasing Doctor Doom. It's actually going to be in May. So if we go to 2026, Robert's going to be 61. It's going to be an 11th year perfection for him. Gemini is on the cusp, and it's being released in May. I'm just assuming it's going to be after the 4th of May. Who knows? But I'm just going to take that as an assumption. So that means it will be in a 12th house perfection in Cancer. So let's go back to the chart. Now, the reason why, as I mentioned, we picked the MC as the starting point for the perfection is because it is your public trajectory rather than just your personal life. And for Robert, that year is going to be an 11th year perfection when it's perfected from the MC. This is a year, because it's got Gemini on the cusp, it means that the Lord of the Year is Mercury. So we're going to be having a look at Mercury and also the North Node, because that's also in his 11th year profection. So with the North Node in Gemini, that is an important placement because it's tied with karmic destiny and also audience impact, because the 11th house is our audience as well. And as well as that, it's innovation within the industry. So it represents our larger networks, our public influence, and our global fandom. And Robert is stepping into a new chapter of mass influence, but this time in a slightly more complex, nuanced character. So that North Node is making a sextile with Venus, and so that's very positive global reception, because ninth house global. Venus is one of the beneficents, very positive. And so that's fantastic that it is sextiling. It's also squaring Pluto down there in his second house. So this new career direction is definitely not without risk. You know, it's a big, bold move to take, completely swapping character, but sticking within the same franchise. That's quite unusual. And it's going to take a lot of hard work to achieve that goal. And that being a successful transformation, which is very Pluto as well. And obviously that, whether it's successful or not, is going to affect finances. And that's your second house. So that North Node again in Gemini, you know, it's a very fated career move. Taking on Dr. Doom is bold. It's a game-changing move that will likely reshape how the world sees him. Gemini is very mercurial. It thrives on reinvention. He's shifting from a beloved superhero to one of Marvel's greatest villains. And the North Node suggests this as an evolution of his public legacy being in the 11th house. Then we've got, as I mentioned, that Mercury that is the Lord of the year here. And, you know, Mercury, as we've said, communication, thought processes. It's also very versatile. And a character like Dr. Doom requires a very sharp intellect, strategic dialogue, and a very complex inner world. We've got the Sun in Aries that it's conjuncting there, and it's exalted in Aries. So that's this very strong leadership and presence. And this role really elevates him in a new way, placing him in an even more powerful and dominant position within that Marvel franchise. And even though it's a little bit wide, we do still have that Venus there as well. And even though it's in detriment, it's still benefic. And so whilst Venus does struggle in Aries, it can still add a magnetic charm and artistry to this portrayal, particularly because it is sextiling that North Node, as we were saying. Dr. Doom, he's not just going to be a super villain. He's also going to be very charismatic and unforgettable with that Venus quality there. So Dr. Doom has the potential to be a real international cinematic powerhouse. And this is also trining the South Node in the 5th house. That is Mercury. Is trining the South Node in the 5th house. And that's a life-changing crossroads again, where he is creatively shedding his comfort zone and skin. So amazing. It's interesting how similar connections keep coming up for him when we're talking about his career path, isn't it? So when we're having a look at the monthly profection, it's the 12th house, it's Cancer over here. And whilst he doesn't have planets there, that 12th house is setting the tone for when this project may finally take shape in the May time. So the 12th house rules sort of hidden matters and secrecy and deep psychological themes. And that's perfect for a mysterious, brooding and complex character like Dr. Doom. Cancer is very emotional. It's intense and deeply tied to personal motivations. And Dr. Doom is one of Marvel's most emotionally driven antagonists. The 12th house is where characters evolve in secrecy. So this might hint that his role will be gradually revealed with twists and hidden depth. So maybe there might only be a slight reveal in May. That Cancer's emotional depth adds layers to Doom's motivation. You know, Robert will likely play him as more than just an evil mastermind, but a villain with deep wounds and a powerful sense of purpose, which is very 12th house as well. Because that 12th house activates a very deeply transformative aspect of ourselves. And this role could define his acting style, his public perception, and also his personal creative process. So it's a fascinating move that he's going to take. I'm sure, like the rest of you, I will wait that with bated breath, with excitement. Funnily enough, Robert is actually a big fan of Stephen Forrest's astrology work. So I wonder if he ever has a look at his Profections himself. That would be interesting. With his Doctor Doom era approaching, it'll be really fascinating to see how these Profections play out for him and what major changes and transformations they bring to the table. Thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed this dive into Astro Gold and how to use the Profections with the software. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you currently use Profections, or maybe this has inspired you to start using them? If you're already using them, do you have any other little tips or techniques that you like to use when you're looking at charts? Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more astrology tutorials. Remember to like the video if you found it helpful. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Instagram and Facebook, and we now have a new TikTok page. And you're also welcome to join our mailing list for exclusive astrology information, updates, and also discounts. Do you have any ideas of any other educational videos that you'd like to see about Astro Gold macOS? If you do, drop it in the comments. We'd love to know what you're curious to learn. Again, thank you for watching, and best wishes from myself, Natta Jain, and Astro Gold and the Esoteric Technologies team. Until next time, happy perfecting, stargazers!